time for convening having arrived, the Senate will come to order. Would ask unauthorized visitors to exit chamber at this time. The Senate will come to order. Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 53rd.
Good morning, Mr. President. It's a rainy day at our state capitol, but it's also a mad day. Mothers Against Drunk Driving is in the hall, so be careful, behave. The journal's been read and found to be correct, sir.
Thank you, Senator, for your good works on the journal. Is there objection dispensing with the reading of the journal? Reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection? Confirmation of journal. Chair hears none. The journal is confirmed. All senators having bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 85 by Senators Beach of the 21st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter
Economic Development.
Senate Bill 86 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others, a bill to
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 87 by Senator Hill of the 32nd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 43-34A.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 88 by Senator Jones of the 25th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 34 of Official Code of Georgia.
Insurance and Labor.
Senate Bill 89 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 19.
Science and Technology.
Senate Bill 90 by Senator McCune of the 29th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article
Judiciary
5.
Committee.
Senate Bill 91 by Senator Harper of the 7th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend
Regulated Industries.
Senate Resolution 155 by Senators Hill of the 32nd and others, a
Government Oversight.
Senate Resolution 159 by Senator Butler of the 55th, a resolution recognizing Mrs. Renelle
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 163 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others, a resolution authorizing the Senate
Rules Committee.
Mr. President, this completes the order.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Appropriation has had under its consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report back the same to the Senate with the following recommendation: that House Bill 75 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hill of the 4th. Chairman, Mr. President, this completes the order.
Second readers.
Senate Bill 3 by Senator Unterman of the 45th and others, supporting and strengthening Families Act, power of attorney from parent to another person, care of minor child provide for. Senate Bill 5 by Senator Cowsert of the 46th and others, Georgia Ports Authority, provide for powers acceptance of loans, grants from United States upon certain terms and conditions. Senate Resolution 74 by Senator James of the 35th and others, minority-owned plasma centers, encouraging the development. Mr. President, this completes the order.
It's now time for the morning roll call. It's time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Any motions to excuse? Senator from the 50th, your light is on. What purpose you rise? Senator from the 50th, your light's on. What purpose you rise? No? Senator, you've been here long enough to understand you need to manage your light. Senators, please signify your presence by voting the A switch. Secretary will unlock the machine. It is now time for the morning devotion. Time for the morning devotion. Would ask that all unauthorized guests exit the chamber at this time. Senators, please take your seats as we prepare for our morning devotion. It is now my distinct honor to call upon the distinguished senator from the 14th District to lead us in our pledge and introduce our very special chaplain of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me as we honor our flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our Georgia flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Now we have completely got all your cue cards.
Good morning, fellow senators. It's not very often that life affords us the opportunity to meet an individual, or even a family for that matter, that can truly inspire you in so many ways. It is true that today is a very special day for me in so many ways, but adding to it is my privilege to introduce my dear friend as a pastor of the day. Mona Harper, also known as Mama Mona, as she is known to so many in Atlanta, is a community leader and an activist for those without a voice, or lack volume, or are in volatile situations. A former journalist, radio announcer, homeschool mother, columnist, and even school principal, she has a unique way of digging deep into society's toughest subjects and challenging others to look good while being direct and motherly. Her insight, passion, and reputation have led many to refer to her as this Mother Mama. She is married to James, other known as Papa J, and is the co-leader of Kingdom City Church in the Atlanta area. She's an accomplished speaker, recording artist, songwriter, editor, music manager, and holds a degree in journalism and sociology. But mostly and most importantly, seeks to give refuge to individuals within the community on a wide spectrum. She serves as a founder of GAP, Gathering All the Pieces ministry that helps individuals find the pieces and fill the gap in their lives. Interestingly enough, Mona has served and continues to serve others, all while battling a severe illness herself. Some of the proudest moments and titled treasures are the time she spends with her husband, affectionately named Mr. Wonderful. Now, with all this going on in her life, where her and James lives, you have never guessed, but they have found time to raise two beautiful, very famous and gifted children. Grammy nominee Jamie Grace, sitting over here in the hat, and storyteller founder Morgan Harper Nichols, sitting over here with her husband as well. Both of these young ladies are heard on the radio throughout the country. And Jamie, I believe, is on an upcoming episode of Doctors. You may also have heard she struggles with Tourette's and is famous for battling with that. Please welcome my good friend, Pastor Mona Harper.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day. For the first time, I'm using cue cards because I don't want to be longer than I'm supposed to. So I've asked my dear friend, Senator Bruce Thompson, to use my cane and poke me if I'm too long, knowing that you guys know if he pokes me too hard that it will be called assault and he can be arrested. Nothing like a really good arrest in the Senate. That will certainly make the news from a former journalist. I'd like to take a few minutes today and just talk to you about your track record. And when I think of a track record, being a teacher, a homeschool mom, and quite the creative one, people ask me all the time, how have you been so instrumental in raising such talented children? And if you listen to our children for any length of time, you will know that they never really grew up listening to much music or watching television. because I decided a very long time ago when I met Mr. Wonderful, and I would never ask you to call him that because I only call him Mr. Wonderful, because he's wonderful only to me. That's what makes a wonderful marriage. And when they grew up, I challenged them and made certain, as the mom, that they did not watch much television, because watching television was someone else telling them their vision. So I made certain that every day they created something, because I knew that God, my creator, created something new the days that I was able to account for, those 7 days of creation. So I told them every day to create something. So I looked at that track record. So I'd like to challenge you today to take a look at your track record. And there's a lot of talk as to how long you should serve in office, and how long, and what's too long, and what's not long enough. So when I think about the word track, I'd like to think of it in the way of an acronym. And I'd like to think of it as the road that all come to the king. Now, I'm not quite sure today who your king is, but I know who my king is. So I want to make sure in the letter that they sent to me to make sure that I'm not offensive to anyone. So I'd like to make sure today that you reference your king as your king, and I reference my king as my king. So making sure that I'm covering all bases here, that your king is yours and my king is my king. Are we okay in that? Let you say okay. Okay, thank you very much. And so your track record today, I just want to let you know that when you're talking about the track, when I left my home today, I crossed the railroad track to get here. Now, the neighborhood that my family and I decided to live in, on both sides of the track, most people would not want to live on either side of that track. And sometimes people say, well, what side of the track that you live, what side of the track are you from? Well, I will tell you is that on last Friday evening, I was at a birthday party on the other side of the track that took me an hour and 16 minutes to get to, at my dear friend Bruce's birthday party. And Bruce turned the big old 50, and now he's on the other side of the track, and the other side because he's almost 100. And there's another way of life once you get on the other side of the track. But I'd like to challenge you today, if you don't spend enough time of your track record on the other side of the track, then the community won't have enough of your time and enough of you being made whole. And that's what I've spent my life doing, making sure that I'm more like my king. Because Jesus, when he met the man at the side of the pool who had been there for 38 years, he asked him, do you want to be made whole? And what I'd like to challenge you today is no one is really being made whole doing your track record if it's only 2% of them that are being made whole. Because if 2% of the people are being made whole, then it's still not a whole, it's only a fraction. And if 50% of the people are being made whole 10% of the year, because they're only getting money 10% of the time, then they're really not being made whole. So I'd like to pose the question, what are we doing to make people whole? You might say, where is she going today? Well, let me tell you, I didn't come here today on a donkey, and I didn't come here today on an elephant, and I didn't drink tea this morning, even though I'm from the South, because I actually prefer Chick-fil-A lemonade, because that's really my choice. My doctor has warned me that I can't drink too much of that because it's not good for my blood sugar. So I actually need to drink more water, because that's what's best for me. But I actually didn't come here today independent. I came here today dependent on the Lord, because that's it. That is my source, and that is my king. So I'd like to ask you today, how are you helping to lead people on their road, the only road that all come to the king? So we need to spend more time making sure that we're on the other side of the track, and don't get caught up on your preferred side of the track, because the only side of the track is the track that's going to help people become whole. So when I was 16 years old, I was driving my car, because I'm an Atlanta native. I was driving my car to Greenbrier Mall, but I made a mistake. I accidentally put the radiator fluid where the oil is supposed to go. Somebody would know what I'm talking about. So after I left Bankhead Highway, where my daddy ran a business all my life, after I left Bankhead Highway and I got close to Greenbrier Mall going to get me a hat to wear to church on Sunday morning, and after I got in that little wrap thing around the road on that track, my car blew up and smoke started coming out of it. The rain was pouring down, and that was around the time that the children were going missing and murdered in Atlanta, and some of you may have had your track record since then. But there was a gentleman that decided to get on the other side of the track and stop and help me. His name was David Scott. Some of you know him because he still serves in Georgia. Well, David Scott pulled over that day on that side of the track and helped me. But you know, interestingly enough, David Scott helped me then, and I'm almost 50 now, and I was 16 then. But you know what happened 3 months ago? Bruce Thompson Thompson decided to come on the other side of the track in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and till 1 o'clock in the morning, he spent time with me and heard my heart about the ministry. Not only did he hear my heart about the ministry, but he knows why I'm up here with these bright cards today. Because you know what? The medication that I take is causing me to lose my vision. Not my vision for life, but my vision that I can see. Because the illness that I have, I'm the only person in the United States and possibly the country ever born with it. But you know what? Just because you're born with an illness doesn't mean you can't work, and it doesn't mean you can't fight, and it doesn't mean you can't tell your story, and it doesn't mean you can't stay on track, and it doesn't mean you can't live it. You can't live. So I stand here today to tell you that you can keep fighting, you can keep going, and if we as citizens of this great United States of America work together and we all get on the same track, whatever side of the track we come from, whatever the side of the track we were going, and whatever the side of the track we prefer, whichever the way you prefer to say it, if we just come together and work together, we can do some great things for this great United States of America. Because today, as I walked through here, I ran into Iris Wright, who is 65 years old, but she's outside with the Grandmother Fund. She is currently, at 65 years old, raising her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. But for the last 14 years, I have been assisting her while I am even in my bed of affliction from the hospital, while I can't walk. Most days I don't walk. 90% of the time I don't walk. But that doesn't stop me, because even when I'm in my hospital bed, I have my earrings on. I have my lipstick on, because ain't nothing like looking good, even when you're feeling real bad. So I want to let you know that you better stay on your track, and nothing can stop you. So don't ever let somebody tell you just because something hurts that they can't work. You can work, because the word can means ability. And all people need to know is that you have an ability to keep on moving, no matter what side of the track. Let me tell you about Sunny. Sunny was a little girl I picked up in a bus. I might be over my 5 minutes, but somebody better hit me with a cane, because I can't stop talking. Sunny was 9 years old when I picked her up in a bus that the door wouldn't stay on. And we used to have to ride down the street, and I tell the teenage boys at the red light on the way to church, somebody hold on to that door, because we're on our way to the King, because this is the road that leads to the King. Hold on to that door. And I talked to Sunny, and I ministered to Sunny, even though her mother was an alcoholic, and I knew her mother didn't know any better. But I didn't give up on Sunny. I worked with Sunny until she was 11 years old. Her mother moved away. I couldn't find Sunny. From 13 years old to 18 years old, Sunny was in the state system of the state of Georgia, and Sunny could not find me. And no one in the state of Georgia asked little Sunny, who else could we call? But Sunny found me 3 months ago, sitting in the parking lot of our church for 3 hours before it started. And you know who's in my home every day, every other day now, catching the bus until I have somebody picking her up to come take care of me in my situation when my daughters are on the road ministering all across the world? Sunny. And she cried, and I told her, I only pray to God, my King, that I had known somebody in the state of Georgia had asked that little girl, who was your pastor? Because I would have taken her into my home like I've taken 24 other children in my home. So you know what? There's a lot of things we need to do across the other side of the track. So I beg you, there's a story of Sunny. There's a little girl named Lakashima that I kidnapped when I was 19 years old, because I didn't know you couldn't pick up children if their mamas didn't take care of them. I took her home, and I kept her until I tried to register her for school, till somebody told me, you can't do that. Can means ability. Yes, I could do it, because guess what? I did, till somebody told me that I couldn't. So I'm here to tell you, cross the track. I hooked up with a hooker, put it in the headline. Yes, I did. I picked her up one Sunday after I preached in the pulpit, and I asked her, how much do you want for the day? And my husband was driving. I said, no, honey, we don't want you, because even if I was like that, you wouldn't be my type. Somebody say, okay. But all I want to do is spend the day with it, because you know what? I want to find out what happened to you on your track of life that made you at 6 months pregnant want to prostitute yourself. And she said, all I need is $45. You know what? I spent the day with her, and she stayed with Sister Wright, who's out there right now walking around in the Grandma Fund, for 2.5 weeks. But you know what? I planted that seed on that track for 2.5 weeks with that prostitute. You know why? Because I hooked up with the hooker on the other side of the track. And yes, I'm the mother of Jamie Grace. And yes, I'm the mother of Morgan Harper Nichols. And I challenge you today to help fill in the gaps. And I'm doing all of that while the doctors are giving me medication for a terminal illness. But you know what? I'm only dying to go be with my King, because this is the road that all come to be with the King. So I challenge you today, if you have a King, get on the track like Bruce and David Scott did. I don't care about your donkey. I don't care about your elephant. I don't even like tea, and I'm dependent on the king. Get on the track and head to the king. Somebody say amen or okay. Hallelujah in the house. Oh, I'm supposed to pray. Would you please stand so we could pray? In a very dignified manner, shall we all pray? Father, we thank you that we've assembled today. I thank you, God, that I was able to stand here in my Michael Kors outlet patent leather black pumps, that I did not fall or stumble. I thank you that these words were received, and I have not yet seen anybody arrest me for saying things that I should not have said. God, I thank you for the wonderful spirit in this Senate today. And God, I pray that as we all learn that we may differ on what we believe ultimately, all of us know that in our hearts that there are still kind, gentle people, and that all of us are working toward the same goal. Jesus asked that man, do you want to be made whole? And we all must understand that all of us have different ways of making people whole, but ultimately, people have to want to be made whole. And the only way we can make people whole is we have to spend time with them. And we have to spend less time in offices and suits and more time walking the streets, crossing the tracks, hooking up with hookers. And yes, God, I am plugging my book, Hooking Up with Hookers, and 39 other ways to reach people. Whatever we have to do to change this world. Our children are dying. They're killing each other while we're dressed up and smelling good. God, help lead us so that we can lead them, because not at the end of the day, but it's at the beginning of the day, when people wake up, when mercies are new, when opportunities are fresh. It's at the beginning of the day when hope is there. At the beginning of the day. Let us stop saying at the end of the day. It's at the beginning of the day, this Monday morning, when we can make a change in ourselves and look within ourselves, and we can get on a different track. And God, people can stay in this Senate for 700 years. It doesn't matter. As long as they're doing something, it doesn't matter. Let's just get on the right track, the road that all come to the King. And let's make it better, starting right now. In the name of Jesus, we all say, amen.
That was a good job. Well done.
Am I in
Thank
trouble?
you. No, not at all. Not at all.
If I'm in trouble. Am I in trouble?
No.
I'm used to getting in trouble.
That was wonderful. All right, there's your step.
don't see her. Wow.
David doing today? Good weekend, you know.
I would, if I can have the Senate's attention for just a moment, I would like to introduce our doctor of the day. The senator from the 9th, who is absent, would have normally introduced him, but our doctor of the day is Dr. Lee Gross. He's a native of Columbus, Georgia, and he's board certified in family medicine. Dr. Gross is a graduate of the University of Georgia, completed his medical residency at the Medical Center in Columbus. He is the medical director of the Gwinnett County Detention Center, and is the current chief medical officer for Valley Healthcare Systems. Please join me in welcoming our doctor of the day.
Thank you for giving me this honor to be here with you today and help out, and thank you for all that you do for the citizens of Georgia. Thank you.
All right. Good stuff. Well done. Well done. All right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's pose for a picture right here. We have a very special group that we would like to recognize at this time. Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 156 by Senator Butler of the 55th. A resolution commending Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and recognizing Monday, February 9th, 2015 as Delta Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated is a public service organization founded January 13th, 1913 by 22 visionary women of the prestigious Howard University in Washington, D.C. And whereas more than 200,000 women have joined this illustrious organization with 1,000 collegiate and alumna chapters located in the United States and around the world. And whereas the sorority celebrates 102 years of exemplary service and dedication toward impacting communities, leading dialogue on national and global public policy, supporting quality education and removing barriers, the stimulation of current and future economic growth, and promoting quality of life overall. And whereas Delta Day occurs at the state capitol on an annual basis with members from across the entire state of Georgia, and in 2015 embraces the theme of social action, power of the past, force of the future. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend the efforts of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for its continued commitment to public service, recognize its collective contributions in helping to make the state of Georgia a better place to live and work, and recognize February 9th, 2015 as Delta Day at the Georgia State Capitol. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It's always great to welcome all the beautiful ladies in red and to speak to the resolution and recognize our special platform guest. I call upon the distinguished senator from the 55th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, the President said it. We have a room full of beautiful women in red. It is my pleasure this morning to welcome them and to tell you a little bit about them. It is so much that we have chosen a few facts about this magnanimous group. They were founded in 1913 on the campus of Howard University by 22 visionary college women. During its 102 years of existence, Delta Sigma Theta has impacted communities and transformed lives of individuals across the world with its 5-point programmatic thrust, including international awareness, political awareness and involvement, physical and mental health with its programs and initiatives. This year's theme of social action, power of the past, force the future, illustrates their commitment to service and excellence. Now, if you would take a look in the gallery, there are at least 75 women. I will. But if you would go out in the halls of the Capitol, you will find more than 300. So during your time today, take a moment and say hello to our Deltas. The names of the people that are up here with me is Cheryl Turner, Porter Costin, Elizabeth Andrews, Gwen Mayo, and they have their own photographer, Leah Spivey. And we have one of our former members of the House, Georgiana Sinkfield. She's here on the end. So help me welcome Delta Sigma Theta in the House today, in the Senate today. Cheryl, would you like to say a few words? Cheryl Turner.
Thank you, Senator Butler, for accepting our request to be here. Lieutenant Governor Cagle, thank you so much. Would the members of Delta Sigma Theta in the gallery stand as we thank the legislators, the senators in the state of Georgia for your support, for your hard work, for being the people that have stepped forward to carry the mantle for your communities. We too carry the mantle for the communities in which we serve. We are a sisterhood called to serve. 102 years ago, our founders marched in the suffrage march for the woman's right to vote, and we are still taking up that mantle and that banner to make sure that we represent those that cannot be here, those that are voiceless and cannot speak for themselves. So we do appreciate this invitation. We do appreciate the opportunity to be here. And as the senator said, there are 300 of us here, and we're planning to bring more each year we come. Thank you so much.
We're going to start right down here and take a picture.
Thank you all. Good to see you. No, thank you, ladies. Thank you. Good. I'm going to let her get it. Good to see you. Come, let's go this way. We'll get a picture. Chair recognizes Senator from the 48th.
District be excused from today's proceedings for reason of illness.
For Senator from the 9th, moving to excuse Senator from the 9th. Is there objection? Without objection, Senator from the 9th will be excused. We have another special group we'd like to recognize, and the Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 161 by Senator Ramsey of the 43rd and others, a resolution commending Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated and recognizing February 9th, 2015 as Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Day at the Capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity was founded at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana on January the 5th, 1911 by 10 African-American, God-fearing, serious-minded, courageous young men, and Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity is a proud and active member of the Divine Nine Greek letter organizations. And whereas under the theme of training for leadership, this fraternity promotes intellectual and genuine concern for human development in all directions while holding fast to the principle of achievement. And whereas over 130,000 members of Kappa Alpha Psi are located on college campuses and graduate chapters around the globe. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity and recognize February 9th, 2015 as Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Day at the State Capitol. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Now my honor to call upon the distinguished senator from the 43rd as he recognized this very special group.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Welcome to Kappa Day at the Capitol. It is my honor to be joined on the rostrum by the Senator Lester Jackson from the 2nd, Senator Emmanuel Jones from the 10th, and Senator Harold Jones from the 23rd, along with Senator James of the 35th. I am and Senator C as well has joined us. Thank you. I'm a proud 35-year member of this most noble clan, and I will ask the rest of the brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity in the gallery to please stand and be recognized. At this time, it is my distinct honor to welcome and allow to address you the Province Polemarch, Brother Lawrence H. Davis, Jr., the youngest Southeast Province Polemarch. Brother Davis.
Thank you. To the Lieutenant Governor, to the members of the Senate, on behalf of the Southeastern Province of Kappa Alpha Psi, we want to say thank you. Thank you for this resolution, and thank you for truly doing the work for this great state. We also want to thank you for addressing issues such as the child safety, emergency preparation, minimum wage, body cameras, and law enforcement sensitive training program, voters' rights, and of most importance, our educational system. To our Lieutenant Governor, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing this to be Kappa Day, and thank you for the resolution, and continue to do the hard work to enhance the quality of this great state. Thank you.
Let's step down and get a picture down on the steps. Good. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Y'all look sharp. Thank you. Got the good senator here. All right. Are there any unanimous consents? Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Yes, we do have one. The senator from the 44th wishes to be recognized, and you are recognized at this time, Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, this morning I rise for our Black History Tribute, and today is the famous Fifth Jubilee Singers, one of my favorite groups. The Fifth Jubilee Singers are vocal artists and students at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, who sing and travel worldwide. The original Jubilee Singers introduced slave songs to the world in 1871 and were instrumental in preserving this unique American music tradition known today as Negro spirituals. They broke racial barriers in the United States and abroad in the late 19th century and entertained kings and queens in Europe. At the same time, they raised money in support of their schools, Fisk University. And Fisk University was founded in 1866, shortly after the end of the Civil War. It is a historically Black university and is the oldest institution of higher learning in Nashville, Tennessee. In 1999, the Fisk Jubilee Singers were featured in Jubilee Singers' Sacred Sacrifice and Glory, a PBS award-winning television documentary series. And then in July of 2007, the Fisk Jubilee Singers went on a sacred journey to Ghana at the invitation of the U.S. Embassy. It was a history-making event as the ensemble traveled to Ghana for the first time and joined in the celebration of the nation's Golden Jubilee, the 50th independence anniversary. In 2008, the Fisk Jubilee Singers were selected as the recipient of the 2008 National Medal of Arts, the nation's highest honor for arts and patrons of the arts. The award was presented by President George W. Bush and First Lady Laura Bush during a ceremony at the White House. So I am so honored today to recognize during this Black History Month the Fisk Jubilee Singers. Thank you very much. I yield the way, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th. Please give the distinguished senator your attention.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I hold up a picture right now of a young man named Kerry Allen James who left home to go to the store for my husband, and he never returned because a 5-time DUI offender took his life. His picture is also on a wall downstairs with Mothers Against Drunk Driving who are here today. And there's so many faces on that wall. I encourage all of us to look at the DUI legislation. We've already strengthened it in the state of Georgia since Kerry's demise. I couldn't bring him back, but I introduced many pieces of legislation that helped us to have safer roads in the state of Georgia and save other lives. But it's still so much more to do because there's still too many people, our loved ones, who are losing their lives. If you get a moment, please stop on the second floor and look at the wall of all of the faces of those who have recently lost their lives due to a drunk driver. I was just talking to one of our new senators who told me that he's a victim of DUI as well, where he had 5 children in the car and a 3-time DUI offender crashed into him. Well, the legislation that you helped me pass many years ago for habitual drunk drivers made it a felony on your 3rd DUI. So I wish it had been the 2nd DUI, and maybe he would not have been hurt as well as the people who were in his car. So we have a lot of work to do. We have to save lives. So thank you for listening to me, and please, let's, those Mothers Against Drunk Driving people were in the gallery just a little while ago, but I don't know if they're still there. But if they are, let's give them a hand at this time for coming up here today. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th on a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, Senators. It is a pleasure to be back with you after being away from you for the last 4 days, 5 days. In that time, a lot has happened. We had a group come here, I believe on Friday, to visit with us. Of course, a lot of us were not here to spend that time with them. However, there was an article in Saturday's paper that discussed their visit to the Capitol. In the article, I was listed as saying how appalling it was that our governor would now blame grandparents and families for the failures of our Department of Family and Children Services. Yes, we all have to work together. The family as a unit has to work together to make sure that our children are safe. But when a child has been reported to DFACS that they are possibly being abused by wherever they are, grandparents have stepped up to the plate and reported this. Family members, aunts, uncles, non-custodial parents have reported this. And unfortunately, the child ends up burned, starved, dead, because we as a government did not do our part. And then what is said? We didn't do enough. The family didn't do enough. No, if it was reported, then the government didn't do enough to save that child. That's not right to blame that family. As I have said in the past, one size fits all isn't the answer. Yes, we want our children, which our governor is now saying, reunification is not the goal any longer. Reunification is a goal. The children need to be able to go back to their families if the families can take care of them. If the families can't take care of them, then there are other options. We've talked about this before. We talked about it last year. Foster parents are an option. My favorite that you all hear, group homes, Cara Steele Pits, and others that have been driven out of business, are another option. Let's look at all our options, but don't blame parents, non-custodial parents, grandparents that are trying to do everything they can do. They are stepping up to the plate and they're asking for help, and that is what we are here for. We are here to help and to make sure that our children are safe. We cut millions of dollars out of the budget over the last probably 10 years. So last year, what happened? Election year politics happened. We came up with about 500 new caseworker positions in DFACS, which is going to take 3 years to get them there. How many did we cut out to begin with? We're just going back to where we were. If we couldn't make it work with the ones that we had and we cut the jobs, then putting these back is not going to solve it. We've got to solve the problem, senators. We can do it. I believe in you, my colleagues. I believe that we can get our heads together and figure out how to save our children. And if I have another minute on another subject, I came in the Capitol today and something I talked to you all about 2 weeks ago. We have one entrance in this Capitol that people can come in. They stood out in the rain today to come visit us and to see their laws being made. One entrance. All the other entrances require access of a key card. And as I said, we can't even get out of one entrance with your key card. We, the legislature, you, my colleagues, we need to fix it so that citizens of this great state of Georgia and anyone visiting this great state of Georgia has a way to get in and out of this Capitol, not through one door on the south end, but open up the doors so the people of Georgia can come and visit you and see what you are doing in their capital. Thank you so much for indulging me this morning.
Thank you, Senator. Secretary will read a resolution. This is the adjournment resolution. Please pay attention.
Senate Resolution 167 by Senator Calzert of the 46th and others, a resolution relative to adjournment and for other purposes. Be it resolved by the General Assembly of Georgia that except as otherwise provided by this resolution or by subsequent resolution of the General Assembly, the dates for convening and dates for adjournment of the 2015 regular session of the General Assembly for the period of Thursday, February 12th, 2015 through Thursday, April 2nd, 2015. And for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th, the majority leader, to explain the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could have your attention here, we have now negotiated out an adjournment resolution with the House that will carry us through the completion of this legislative session. As far as I can recall, this will be the first time we've done this early in a session, and I want to commend my colleagues in the House, particularly the majority leader, who's been just a delight to work with on this, to give us some certainty what our work schedule is going to be. We are scheduled to conclude sine die. The 40th day would be April the 2nd, which is a Thursday, the next day being Good Friday, and the week after that is Atlanta spring break. So it's very important to us that we try to wrap up our business by April the 2nd. There are two very key dates that we have reached an agreement with the House that we will honor. One is that the House has promised us that they will pass the budget and immediately transmit it to the Senate on Thursday, February the 26th, which will be the 23rd day of the legislative session. We in turn have promised the House that we will complete our work on the budget and pass that out on Friday, March the 20th, which is the 33rd day of the session. So that gives the Senate only 10 days to complete our work on the budget, but we're committed to doing that. I've given my word of honor to the House that we'll keep that schedule, and I am assured by our Appropriations Chairman that this schedule gives us the time that we need to do that. provided that the House gets the budget out by February the 26th. You'll note that we'll be out this Friday. We'll be out Monday for President's Day. We'll be in Tuesday through Friday of next week. And then running for several weeks consecutive, we'll be in from Monday through Thursday. That's important to people here as citizen legislators, that we have some time to be back in our district to get feedback from our constituents and also to keep our businesses running, and that we don't go so fast here that we don't have time to deliberately consider the legislation that comes before us. There's one exception to that. On Tuesday, the March 10th, we'll be in adjournment that day. That will give our appropriations subcommittees time to work through the budget. It's a day that we need in order to keep our commitments here. Again, we'll be out on 2 days. If you look at your calendar there, back in late March, where we are going to be out on Monday and Tuesday, March 16th and 17th. Those will be days for our budget committees to work and get the budget out right there. We expect to have it on the floor, like we said, on Friday, March the 20th. Otherwise, we're basically running 4-day weeks. At the very end, as you recall, it gets pretty hectic. That last week of March the 23rd through March the 27th, we'll be in session 5 days. And then we come back the last week. We're off Monday. We'll be having a Rules Committee meeting that day. House will be finishing up committee work. We'll have day 39 on Tuesday, March 31st. We take April 1st off for conference committees and other work there, and then have our final day on Thursday, April 2nd. I'm happy to say that this has been agreed upon by the House and all the Senate leadership. We've consulted with the minority leader, who is a co-sponsor of this adjournment resolution. So I appreciate the bipartisan spirit of this body and the House in getting this schedule together. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there may be any, Mr. President.
Are there any questions?
And I thank you for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator, for your hard work. It's been a long time, sets a great precedent, but an adjournment resolution through the 40th day so everyone can plan their calendars knowing what to anticipate. Is there objection to adoption of the adjournment resolution? The chair hears none, and the adjournment resolution is therefore adopted. Chair recognizes Senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to immediately transmit Senate Resolution 167 to the House of Representatives for
immediate transmittal. Is there objection? Without objection, the bill will be immediately transmitted to the House for their action. Chair recognizes the Senator from the 27th on a point of personal privilege.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, in honor of Black History Month, I rise on a point of personal privilege to draw attention of the Senate to a great American and a symbol of the great history of our state and our party, Miss Lucy Craft Laney. She was born in Macon in 1854 as one of 10 children to David and Lusanna Laney, former slaves who bought their own freedom. At the age of 4, Miss Laney committed a crime. She learned to read. At this time in our history, it was against the law for African Americans to be literate. Fortunately for many, that would be the beginning of a lifetime of learning. In 1869, she attended the first class at Atlanta University and earned her teaching degree. This laid the foundation upon which Miss Laney built the first school for black children in Augusta. Under her 50 years of leadership from 1883 to 1933, the Haynes Normal and Industrial School would grow from 6 students to 900. Improving communities and preparing Georgians for lives of independence and fulfillment. The Haynes Institute became a center for orchestral performances, nationally renowned speakers, the first nursing school for African American women in Augusta, and a place where young people found opportunity through exposure to high culture. Lucy Craft Laney joins the Reverend Henry McNeil Turner and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as the first African Americans to have their portraits hung in the Georgia State Capitol. I thank you for joining me in remembering and saluting Miss Laney here today, and in looking to her story to inspire us as we address questions of our own as to how to improve the opportunities for all Georgians to receive a quality education. Before I yield the well, I would like to leave you with my favorite quote of Miss Laney's. God didn't use any dirt to create me than she did the First Lady. Thank you, and I yield the well.
All right, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th. Speak on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. In keeping with Delta Day, I just wanted to recognize or say out loud some friends that are notable Deltas who was unable to be with us today. That's Ms. Linda Jordan, Dr. Darrell McCullough. Senator Arthenia Journer is now the minority leader in the Florida State Senate. Dr. Wendy C. Oliver, yes, she is my daughter. Attorney Yolanda Cash Jackson and Myrna White, just to name a few of those women in red who have graced us with their presence as Deltas on Delta Sigma Theta Day. Mr. President, now for Black History. I have the pleasure, I like to do show and tell, of being a member of this body when we as a chamber was welcoming the remains of Mrs. Coretta Scott King. That was a historic day. Hundreds of people graced the streets as her carriage, drawn by horses, brought her remains to lie in the rotunda in this great building. I was among those who were asked by the GBI to go upstairs, unbeknownst to me at the time, that we as elected officials had to wait in the chambers until the family, the governor, and the then mayor, Shirley Franklin, would be the first, and then we were allowed to come to view her remains. Let me remind you, she was never elected. She was the anchor for her husband through the movement and earned a right to be a part of the civil rights movement. She was the first woman and African American woman to be honored and lie in state in this Capitol. Every time I think about these instances where I, Valencia Martin C., one of 56 among you, who was born and raised in the city of Atlanta in Herndon Homes housing projects, and now has a vote, just like each of you, one vote, to serve this great state of Georgia. I am proud that we recognize Coretta Scott King as a history maker and acknowledge her presence on this day in history in Georgia. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 39th. He waves off. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a new day in the Senate. The senator from the 39th has just waved off a point of personal privilege. It is a record. Please allow. this to go in the record book today. I want it in the journal, okay? Make sure it's in the journal tomorrow. In bold. I'm teasing. It's not often I get to have fun with a senator from the 39th. All right, we have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions that are before you. Is there objection to agreeing to the consent calendar of privilege resolutions? Without objection, the consent calendar privilege resolutions therefore adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? It is now time to move on to the general calendar. The Secretary will read Senate Bill 53. All right, before we do that, I guess we'll we need to move it from the table. This freshman senator is wishing to bring a bill off of the table. Pretty bold move. Chair recognizes Senator from the, Chair recognizes Senator from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that we remove Senate Bill 53 from the table.
Read the caption.
Senate Bill number 53 by Senator Kirk of the 13th. A bill to be entitled An Act to Amend an Act relating to mental health care and authorizing a licensed professional counselor to perform certain acts. Act number 546 approved April 21st, 2014, so as to revise the sunset provision to provide for an effective date and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
The senator from Sumter County is wishing to remove a bill from the table. Is there objection? Wow, a lot of objection on this, Senator. Yeah, it's going to have to be a roll call. I'm pretty convinced of that at this point. There's way too much objection that I just heard from. So all those in favor of removing the bill, a very controversial bill, from the table will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. If this bill fails, Senator, on the move for, we could move for reconsideration, obviously, if it failed. But it's the motion to, okay, well, in the last moments, there were a few folks that got persuaded. Out of 29 votes, you got 31. And I tell you, that's... The bill has been removed from the calendar. Secretary will... we've already read it, so the chair recognizes the senator from the 13th to the well to speak to Senate Bill 53.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow senators. Boy, what a day. We've had a lot of inspiration today, and I started to ask the minister who was here today to present this bill for me because I knew that would help an awful lot. If I'd known it was going to be that close, I would have. Senate Bill 53 what it does is ask for extension of the sunset for Senate Bill 65, which was passed last year. What Senate Bill 65 does is allow licensed professional counselors like myself to sign a 1013 form, which is just the number of a form from the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, that if I'm with a client and I feel that client is suicidal or homicidal, that and they refuse to go get treatment, what I'll do first is encourage them to go and a family member go with them. But if they refuse, then we can sign the 1013. Law enforcement will come and take them to an emergency receiving facility. So all this is going to do is allow us to gather data for 3 years, working in conjunction with the Sheriff's Association, Department of Behavioral Health, and Licensed Professional Counselors Association of Georgia.
Very, very good, Senator.
Thank you.
No. There are a number of questions regarding this bill. I don't know if it's as simple as you just explained it to be, but
Thank you.
Chair recognized Senator from the 56, another expert on the topic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, will you yield?
Certainly.
Senator, I'm looking through your bill. It's quite thin. And usually with bills, we have some more information about the code.
Correct.
I notice you've referenced, is it correct that it's 37-7-41 of the Official Code of Georgia?
Yes.
Just to help the rest of us here who may not be familiar, could you give us a quick overview of OCGA 37-7-40, 41, and 42?
Well, I just happen to have a book here with me that I can reference to, but I'll defer to the code for you to read at a later time.
Senator, will you further yield?
I certainly will.
Isn't it true that last year the General Assembly passed this bill with a date certain to end in April 2014?
Actually, it was March 15th of this year. That's correct.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So are you saying that the General Assembly last year and the governor of the great state of Georgia got it wrong?
I'm saying they didn't realize how much time we were going to need to gather the data. Unfortunately, the departments that are working on this have not communicated well in the past, and we all realize, and the Sheriff's Department spoke with Terry Norris. He's in agreements to work with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities and Licensed Professional Counselors Association of Georgia. So I just think they didn't recognize how much time was actually needed.
So, Senator, would you yield for one final question?
I certainly will.
So are you saying that it's true that as a freshman senator that you are much wiser than all of those parties involved and the General Assembly from last year and the governor of the great state of Georgia?
No, sir. I'm saying I'm just a messenger. Please don't shoot me.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to get shot. Chair recognizes Senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes.
Senator Yield, Senator, I'm concerned about, as the senator from the 56 said, the size of this.
Yes.
Knowing that this is your first bill,
yes,
did you intentionally choose this bill to present early in the session because of the size, to avoid questions from this esteemed body? Is that the fact?
Well, Senator from the 53rd, I would say that I follow the KISS rule, which means keep it simple, senators.
I'm glad you changed that last one. Senator, further yield?
Certainly.
Now, Senator, I happen to be the sponsor of the last ethics bill, so I consider myself the ethical senator here. And I would like to say that I know you've been told to question, but ethics in this bill and morality is something very important to me.
Certainly.
And I'd like for you to tell me what you intend to mean on line 2 where you say perform certain acts. Would you explain those acts that you might be performing?
Certainly. When we have a client in our office, and we are working with that client, and we deem them to be suicidal or homicidal.
Is that French with a wee?
Pardon? Not in South Georgia, it's not. But we'll perform those acts by signing that 1013.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes one of the greatest constitutional lawyers in the Senate, Senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Senator yield?
Certainly.
Our esteemed Rules Chairman just brought up the topic of ethics, and that is what concerns me here today with your bill.
Yes, sir.
What is your profession again?
I'm a licensed professional counselor.
So you are the profession that this bill is giving new rights and abilities here, right?
Well, I do represent that profession. That's correct.
And this will give you the authority to write out these 113 notices to have people confined for 72 hours if necessary to be evaluated.
No, sir. The 1013 actually,
1013.
yeah, that's correct. The 1013 actually allows for the transport for them to go to the emergency receiving facility for the assessment. The doctor will sign whether or not they're committed. But let me tell you this, so there are no conflicts of interest. I've not been in private practice for 15 years now. Now I'm strongly considering starting a private practice here in the metro area. Since I've gotten here, met a lot of folks. I think there may be a little business here. But not right as of today. I am not in private practice, so I have not been able to utilize the 1013 personally in 15 years.
But it sounds like this, you're trying to line this up, extend the deadline so you can open up a lucrative private practice here in Atlanta where you have such a large group of potential patients, it looks like, right?
To be clear, it actually is not a money-making proposition for a licensed professional counselor. When we sign a 1013 form and refer someone to a hospital for committal, we actually lose revenues because we won't be seeing that person while they're in the hospital.
So this will give you the chance to keep them in your private practice by not signing that form then, right? I see you got it working both ways.
Point
Let me
well
ask you
taken.
one other question. Are you familiar with Senate Rule 5-1.8?
Is that the one about the conflict of interest?
It prohibits you from voting on your own bill. Your first bill, looks to me like you either can't vote on your own bill, or else you're about to commit an ethical violation that could result in you get sent back home if we expel you from the Senate for violating our rules.
My goodness. Well, if I hadn't
Just
voted...
wondered if you thought that through before you presented this and our vote comes up.
All I know is if I hadn't voted a while ago, it would have been even closer than it was. So I'm glad I did. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the distinguished minority leader, the senator from the 41st, who knows
Senator
a lot
Yield?
about 1013.
Certainly.
Senator, earlier the Lieutenant Governor mentioned the senator from the 56 was acutely aware of this issue. Is he also a counselor?
Senator from the 56?
Yeah.
No, not to my knowledge.
Oh, maybe he meant on the other end of the coin, I see.
All right.
Thank you. A few things about this issue, Senator. Now, you are talking about these 1013s being transports.
Yes.
Orders. So I'm sure that you are here today prepared to tell us the difference in the amount of people transported under order of LPCs or this bill and other professionals. So what percentage of people transported by this profession were, then put in for the hold or the accepted by the doctor for the evaluation or order was presented compared to the other professions, psychologists, psychiatrists?
Okay, we don't have that data. That's one of the reasons why we want to extend this sunset clause, because no one's gathered that data. In fact, at one point, you didn't even put your credentials on the form of the 1013, but that's one thing we've changed during this process, working with the Department of Behavioral Health.
So you're saying 3 years ago, this data was not collected in any manner?
Until July of last year, LPC could not even sign a 1013 form. We had to work through the probate judge.
Okay. So therefore, Senator, I'm sure in your profession, you would not have brought this before us since you didn't have those statistics and you didn't know it was safe because you didn't have those statistics.
Right.
That you, as a professional, went and met with several people who had had this order committed a 1013 by LPC, and you talked to those individuals to see if they were fairly transported for evaluation. How many of the individuals did you get to talk to who had been either committed or been transported by a 1013?
Right. I have some data here where we actually...
How many did you individually interview and discuss in your research on the bill?
That would be none.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
And what's your information?
And part of that reason would be because that is confidential information. We could not share. I couldn't say to anyone that, by the way, I've got this client over here I had to 1013 last week. You might want to go interview them, because that's privileged information.
Well, that's good to know, Senator. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Then you do know that at any time, we've seen this sunset now go on, and we haven't collected any data. At any time, the legislator in his wisdom could sunset a bill. Simply, if you didn't have this sunset clause here for 18, we at any time during any session could say, oh, the information's come back. It's come back in 17th, it's coming back in 2019, and we could then pass a bill saying that these professionals would not be able to do this. So are you saying that you want to create a mechanism to hold over this profession rather than just allow us to make this action when we feel we have the information, whether it's 19 or 20 or 17?
I'm not 100% sure I follow your logic there, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try real hard. What I'm saying is that I believe the collaboration works best, and when we have the sheriffs, the Department of Behavioral Health, and LPCA all saying we'll collaborate together to work to gather this data, then I think that's the best approach at this point in time. Personally, I would prefer to do away with the sunset completely, but in the spirit of collaboration, I present this bill.
Thanks, Senator. I appreciate all your hard work on it. So before we move to the next question, I just want to make sure, so you're not in private practice.
Right.
If you get a little discouraged with my stability later in the session, you can't order a 1013 against me. Is that correct?
If you're not my client, no, I cannot.
Thank you very much. I'm feeling better.
Great.
There's a few senators that are going to be your client before the day's out. I feel confident. Chair recognizes Senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Senator. Well, Senator Yield?
Certainly.
I actually have a serious question. One of the concerns I have is that we're requiring the sheriff's departments, or have in the past the sheriff's departments, to tie up deputies long periods of time at hospitals, waiting on committal papers, et cetera, and then that's that officer sometimes 4 or 5 hours away from one of the state facilities.
Certainly.
And do you have any concern that this may increase that obligation on sheriffs?
Actually, Senator from the 19th, the data that we've pulled together so far, and this is not only from the state of Georgia, but also in 2005, Florida passed a similar bill. Down there, they have mental health counselors, the same license that we have licensed professional counselors in Georgia, and they have 12,000 of those mental health counselors, and they were concerned about an increase in the number of 1013s, and it showed absolutely no increase. And according to Terry Norris with the Sheriff's Department, there's been no noted increase since July. I do have some data from Grady Hospital that says that they dropped hospitalizations by 40% by having LPCs there in their emergency room. And then also St. Mary's Hospital down on the coast dropped it by 50% hospitalizations. What we're believed to be, the data will show, is that there will actually be a drop in the transports because you'll have the mental health professional that'll be there to be able to spend the time to determine whether or not this person is truly suicidal or not. Oftentimes, in a hurried situation, physicians have an awful lot of things on their plate. And if they're working in the ER and they've got a heart attack in room 1 and a cancer patient in room 2 and on it goes, and then you've got this guy in room 5 that says he wants to kill himself, a lot of times they'll just say, well, sign 1013 and we'll send them to be evaluated. So we're hoping to reduce those numbers and take some of the pressure off our ERs. And also with the new systems that we have in place with the crisis stabilization units across the state that's put together by the Department of Behavioral Health, the one down in Valdosta, Georgia, which I have personally visited, has really reduced the time of law enforcement. They pull up, they drop the patient off, they sign a paper, and they leave. They're not having to sit there and wait like they have in the past in the ER. We certainly want to reduce that by having more LPCs available.
With Senator for the Yield.
Certainly.
The LPC is not doesn't make the medical determination, though, do they?
No. Once they go to the emergency receiving facility, what happens is the doctor in the state of Georgia, the law says that it has to be a doctor, and he also has to have someone that collaborates with him on that, saying, yes, this person definitely needs to be held.
Senator, has anything changed at the hospital that we have a medical person there that we haven't had in the past to make these decisions? I mean, the emergency rooms are still just as busy as they ever were.
Yes.
What is it that's expediting the process at the hospitals? When you talked about Grady, you talked about the hospital down in Savannah, how are we expediting those cases any faster that would keep a sheriff deputy from having to wait?
By having the mental health professional there on site that's receiving those potential 1013 patients. And
So-
in some cases, they're saying, no, this person does not need to be 1013. They can be returned back to their home for outpatient treatment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 50th for a question.
Well, Senator Yield,
Certainly.
you create a little concern with me when you talked about setting up your private practice here in this area. And just for a point of clarification, I'd like to know, what do you have in mind, for instance, being an in-house counselor here in this body or somewhere else outside of it?
Well, all I have today is a love seat in my office. If you see me go to a couch, then that means I've set up practice.
Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 54th. 54th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, will you yield?
If I must.
You don't have to.
I certainly yield. Yes, please.
I think I understood you earlier to indicate that your personal preference would be to do away with this sunset provision entirely.
That's correct.
And you're the lead sponsor of this legislation.
That's correct.
And you believe that after June the 30th of 2018, there will still be a need for 1013s.
Yes.
And you believe that after June 30th of 2018, licensed professional counselors should be able to sign 1013s.
Up through that time, that's correct, yes.
Now, Senator, I confess to not having followed your freshman candidacy and with your constituents and neighbors, but did you let them know that it's your intention to come here and immediately compromise?
Immediately compromise? I'm sorry, I don't follow your logic.
The first bill you're introducing, asked this Senate to pass, you yourself have indicated is not your preference.
Oh,
I think you called it a spirit of collaboration, which
That's
I made
correct.
note of because I'm going to use that later.
Okay.
But I was just curious if you let your constituents know that you intended to bring a bill, your first bill to the Senate, and compromise your own preferences.
Well, I certainly don't recall all my campaign speeches, but they did know when they voted for me, they voted for a person who has built some successful businesses and has been successful in a lot of different arenas, and part of that success comes from learning how to collaborate.
Doing great, Senator. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes one of the health professionals also in our distinguished body, the senator from the 52nd at this time, knows a little bit about this subject.
Thank you. Will the senator yield?
Certainly.
I'm worried about conflict with other laws that we have here. Are you familiar with OCGA 37-3-41?
Not off the top of my head, Senator.
Well, that happens to be the specific code that you're changing.
Oh.
Is the senator still saying that he's not familiar with this?
Okay, I'm a little familiar with the Senator.
Okay. And I actually have a copy of Form 1013 here.
Yes.
And I know it talked about 12 different conditions if they were present. How many of these conditions would you have to check off to commit someone?
Well, it's not a checklist, Senator. It's you use your clinical judgment and you evaluate a situation. When I was in private practice, I opened a private practice in '93 and ran it through 2000. I actually had two different occasions where I had to commit someone against, have them transported to be evaluated for commitment against their will. One of the gentlemen actually had a pistol in his pocket, and he was planning on committing suicide, and I had to take that away from him while I sat in my office with him for 3 hours waiting on his wife to go to the probate judge with another relative to sign the forms and get everything done that needed to be done. I'm happy to report that all these years later, he's doing great in our community still, and all that's in the past. But at that point in time, he was suicidal. And so I use my clinical judgment. There's not a checklist. You have to determine by the relationship that you build with a client, or even if they're coming in for the first time, you have to use all your different judgment, and you have to ask the right questions.
Well, would the senator further yield?
Certainly.
Looking at these 12 items here, if we had a House member, as an example,
that's a good example.
You check the box here that says appeared calm. Would that be sufficient grounds?
No.
All right. Well, I would ask the senator to perhaps look over on the other side in the future on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 3rd. Senator from the 3rd.
President, does the senator yield?
Certainly.
Senator, you have waxed eloquently about collaboration and trying to work together.
Yes.
But I'd like to direct your attention to lines 12 and 13 of the bill.
Okay.
It says, this act shall become effective upon its approval by the governor or upon its becoming law without such approval. Are you telling the governor that you're going to want to pass this bill even if he doesn't like it? I mean, what kind of message are we sending to him about this?
Well, Senator, I believe that's in most every bill, because what that means is if the governor chooses not to sign a bill before July 1st, then that automatically becomes law. That's my understanding. Of course, I'm new here.
Does the senator yield?
I certainly do.
How many other bills have you read to be able to make that statement?
I really can't honestly give you an answer how many other bills I've read that had that statement in it.
Well, one more question for you, Senator.
Certainly.
Or a couple more. Do you expect to pass any more bills in your tenure here? Would you like to do that?
I was elected by 180,000 folks to come up here and represent them to do that. So, yes, sir, I hope to.
Do you realize that you're making us work through lunch to pass your first bill?
Point well taken. Thank you. Can I yield the wheel? Where'd the president go? All right.
What'd he say?
Mr. President, I move to yield the well.
You will find that those words will become very valuable to you as you move on in your Senate career. You have that right to do so.
Thank you.
You better be glad, because the senator from the 49th and the senator from the 11th were ready to ask a few additional questions. All right, does any other senator wish to speak for or against this bill that would personally benefit the senator from the 11th? Is there objection to agree in the report of committee? Which favor pass the bill? Chair is none. Report of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put, or the objections? Chair is none. Main question order. Shall this bill now pass? Question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51 and the nays are 4. And this bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Senator from the 13th was a great sport. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you very much for indulging us. You set a great example for some of these other new freshmen that will still have to come and present a bill. Chair recognizes Senator from the 46th.
Mr. President, I move the Senate stand adjourned until 10 o'clock a.m. on Tuesday, February the 10th.
10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Secretary will read the announcements.
The 1 p.m. Education and Youth Committee meeting will meet in room 307 of CLOB. The 1 p.m. Rules Committee meeting will meet upon adjournment in room 450 of the Capitol. The 2 p.m. Ethics Committee meeting has been canceled. The 2 p.m. Governmental Oversight Committee meeting will be held in room 103 of the Capitol. The 3 p.m. Reapportionment and Redistricting Committee meeting will be held in room 307 of CLOB. The 3 p.m. Special Judiciary meeting will be held in room 122 of the Capitol. The 4 p.m. Judiciary Non-Civil Committee meeting will be held in room 307 of CLOB. The Transportation Committee meeting has been canceled. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Very good. The senators moved that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. All of those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. We stand adjourned.